There's a reputation that tennis has carried around for decades now. That it's soft, that it's polite, country club, whisper quiet crowds, players apologizing for net cords like they just rear-ended someone in a parking. A sport where emotion is treated like a breach of etiquette. And as much as I hate to admit it, this year's Australian Open is doing everything in its power to prove that stereotype right. Because instead of talking about insane shot making, brutal 5-set battles, or who might actually stop Alcaraz or Sinner, we're stuck arguing about feelings, tone, vibes, whether someone saying "come on" crossed some invisible moral line. Now, before we get into it, if you care about tennis actually growing as a sport, as a piece of entertainment, and not just staying in its tiny, polite bubble, hit like, subscribe, and let's talk about this. So, here's the harsh truth. A massive chunk of sports fans, or the general non-tennis watching public, already think tennis is boring. They think it's slow, that it lacks personality. They think the athletes are either emotionally fragile or so robotic you don't know anything about them. Us as tennis fans, we obviously know more about the players, but we have to take ourselves out of it. Try to look from a third-party perspective, as if you've never watched a tennis match before. Now, every single time we turn microscopic, meaningless moments into full-blown controversies, we hand these people ammunition. And the Australian Open this year has been loaded with these moments. They're not scandals, not cheating, not match fixing. It's just like vibes offenses or something like that. So let's start with the first one, Naomi Osaka. We all saw that outfit she came out with during her first round match. We're not really here to talk about that. We don't really care, whatever. During her next match against Sorana Cirstea, she shouts "come on" between first and second serve. Now, I get it, you're not supposed to do it, but is it really the biggest deal in the grand scheme of things? You know, she shows emotion, the same thing every athlete in every other sport on earth does. And Sorana Cirstea, makes it a thing. Talks to the umpire, asks if Osaka's allowed to do that, and fans online start clutching pearls. Suddenly, we're debating whether hyping yourself up is unsports. It's absolute insanity. If Naomi Osaka did that in basketball, football, soccer, hockey, UFC, almost any other sport that exists, cricket probably, nobody even blinks. But in tennis, it's treated like a breach of sacred tradition. And for what? What are we protecting here? The sanctity of silence? All this does is reinforce the third-party idea that tennis players aren't allowed to be human. Now, let's transition to the Bublik Etcheverry and why this one actually helped tennis. So, Bublik, was he disrespectful towards Etcheverry during this moment of the Australian Open? Yeah, absolutely. No argument there. He crossed lines. He acted like a jerk. He antagonized, and he made it uncomfortable. And guess what? People watched. Twitter blew up. People are talking about it. People shared clips. People who don't normally care about tennis suddenly had an opinion. It's not a coincidence. Bublik didn't hurt tennis. He injected it with something it desperately lacks: edge. Tennis fans, we love to pretend that decorum matters more than relevance. But the uncomfortable truth is that controversy, especially when it's personality-driven controversy and not some, major problem like match fixing or, some other horrific event, it's rocket fuel for attention. And attention is the lifeblood of modern sports. And then lastly, we have the Iga Swiatek hindrance controversy. A quote-unquote net collision, delayed call, a rule interpretation that required slow motion analysis and legal style debate. It's the kind of thing only tennis fans could argue about for days. To a casual fan, it looks ridiculous. One athlete reaching over the net, the other one obviously close, but avoiding the other player. Now the conversation with this is, oh, well, was Iga Swiatek hindering Marie Buzkova? Did they almost collide at the net? No, they did not almost collide at the net. It's so obvious if you just watch the clip. Now I can't show it for copyright reasons, but here's a photograph of it. And this conversation makes tennis, instead of looking intense and dramatic, it makes it look bureaucratic, over-officiated, over-analyzed, soft. I mean, if you're a football fan or a soccer fan and you look at this, you may even think to yourself, well, what's the big deal? There's no contact. She's just standing there with her arms up close to the other player. It's a complete who cares. Now here's where the real hot take comes. But here's what I think. Tennis needs more assholes, more villains, more trash talkers, more players who don't care if you like them. Because whether people love you or hate you, they watch. Nick Kyrgios is the perfect example. Entire arenas tuned in just to see what he is gonna do next. Is he gonna implode? Talk to the crowd? Disrespect the umpire? Pull off something ridiculous? He's a must watch. And tennis needs more of that energy. We need players to be able to let loose without fears of fines or categorizations that they're trying to impede their opponent. If you want a blueprint, look at the UFC. Another one-on-one, mano-a-mano sport that does a fantastic job of marketing. And the sport's true mainstream peak came when none other than Conor McGregor, the greatest trash talker of all time, was dominated. He was not polite, he wasn't respectful, and he wasn't trying to be likable. He did not care. He was loud, arrogant, unapologetic, and the UFC loved it. When Conor faded, interest dipped, they lost numbers. And now, well, they're rebuilding that momentum with characters like Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Why? Because personality sells above all else. Not perfection, not etiquette, emotion. I'm not trying to defend bad behavior just for the sake of it. It's about reality. Tennis doesn't just compete with other racket sports. It competes with everything. Netflix, TikTok, UFC knockouts, NFL playoffs, NBA drama. If tennis wants to grow, really grow, it can't keep punishing personality and rewarding silence. Fans complaining about someone yelling, "Come on," are missing the bigger picture. That energy is exactly what brings new eyes. And all I care about is tennis as a whole. More fans, more interest, more relevance. Because a polite, quiet sport nobody watches isn't noble. It's dying. And tennis needs fire before it fades completely. But what do you think? Is tennis's soft sport reputation fair, or are we missing the bigger picture? If you disagree, let us know in the comments below. And as always, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks so much again for watching. See you next time.